So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. My name is Tony Gomar. I am one of the coal managers here at the Energy Data Center, and I'm happy to be providing this training with regards to coal and coal product statistics today, together with my colleague Sergio. We'll cover key coal trends, key coal concepts, and key points for reporting coal data. So starting with key coal trends, let's look at some key figures on coal in the energy landscape. We see on the left that it is the second largest source of energy, as its total energy supply is at 27.8%, just behind oil and in front of natural gas. Coal is also the main source for electricity generation, with 35.6% of the total in 2023. And from these two charts, we see how coal is still a major fuel in the energy landscape today. Moving on now to coal production and its evolution over time and broken down by country with this figure from our latest report on our coal annual statistics, which is entitled Coal Information 2025 and was published this summer. So on the left, we see that historical coal production during the 90s, the coal production has been quite flat, while as of 2000, we observe a rapid growth, mainly driven by China. This increase stops in 2010 with even a slight decrease from 2014 to 2016, where the increased trend starts over. In 2020, we observe a drop due to COVID pandemic, as demand decreased a lot, in particular demand for coal used in power sector. Then we see a steep increase in 2021 and 2022. And looking at the main coal producer on the right part of the slide, we see that China is by far the largest coal producer before the OECD as an aggregate, and followed by India and Indonesia, who are also fast-rising producers in relative terms. When it comes to consumption of coal, so on the left part of the slide, we see it in energy units, in exajoules. We see that it follows a historical trend similar to the production, being successively flat, then highly increasing as of 2000, before slowing down in the mid-2010s. As we saw for production, we see the drop in 2020, followed by significant bounce in 2021. Looking at the main coal consumer on the right, we see that China, with more than 50% of world total, is the first coal consumer, and where coal is mainly used for power generation. Then, after the OECD as an aggregate, is India, that together with China represent 2/3 of the total, and then in third position, the United States. On the trade side, we can see on the left that for the first time in 2023, Indonesia is the main exporter, thanks to the continuous decrease in the exports from the OECD countries, notably Australia and the United States. And similarly to the demand and production for exports, we can see on the right that only a handful of countries accounts for the vast majority of the total. When it comes to imports, China and India, respectively in light and dark blue on the left chart, were again the two largest coal importers in 2022. However, in 2023, we see a huge increase in China from 300 million tons to almost 500 million tons, and the more stable increment in India imports up to about 250 million tons. The huge increase in the imports of China implies that they have exceeded the imports from OECD countries, who have decreased significantly in recent years. We can also note that the imports in the European Union, which is the gray line in the chart, stopped rising with a reduction of about 26% overall, of which Germany accounts for 28%, reaching the lowest level in the time series. On the right, we can mention that OECD remains the second largest importer, mainly driven by imports from Japan and Korea. Moving on now to one of the key concepts when it comes to coal statistics, which is the products classification. Primary coal is very heterogeneous, and various primary coal types can be distinguished by their physical and chemical characteristics, which determine their price and suitability for various uses. Generally, the higher the carbon content, the higher the quality, and higher rank coals have lower levels of moisture and volatile matter, better coking coal qualities for use in the metallurgical sector, and therefore higher prices. On the left side of the screen, is a classification depending on the calorific value. Hard coal refers to the coal of gross calorific value greater than 24,000 kilojoules per kilogram, and it includes anthracite, coking coal, and other bituminous coal. Brown coal refers to coal with a gross calorific value lower than 24,000 kilojoules per kilogram and includes subbituminous coal and lignite. Coal can also be classified by use, which we see on the right side. Coking coal is also known as metallurgical coal. That is to say that it's the coal of a sufficient grade for use in the steel production. So this is the first category. The second category in terms of use is steam coal, also known as thermal coal, which is suitable for electric power production. And this group includes anthracite, other bituminous coal, and subbituminous coal. Lignite is usually excluded from this classification, but is also mainly used for electricity and heat generation. Until now, we mostly talked about coal, but to be precise, the full name of this section of energy statistics is solid fossil fuels and manufactured gases, which is a broader concept. On the left side of the screen, we can see primary products, which are those that we can find in the nature. So we can see the 5 products that we just covered, plus oil shale and oil sands, and peat. On the other hand, we have manufactured or derived products, which are obtained from the manufacture of the primary products, and that can be also some gaseous products. I will not get into too much details here, but the key thing to note is that many of these products are interconnected, and that knowing these interconnections is useful to assess the related trends, to ensure that the reporting is consistent, or to perform some estimates or modeling. For example, it is possible to assess the coke oven gas production based on the production of coke oven coke, as these two products are highly correlated as part of the same process. Moving on now to the coal balance. Let's look at it through this quite simplified flowchart, going from left to right and starting with production. So production, coal is extracted from the ground through mines that can be either surface or underground mines, but can also be produced from what we call other sources, which are the recovery of coal from waste piles or slurries, or from other fuels, of which production is covered in these other fuels energy balances, but for which the consumption will occur in the coal energy balance. We can also have derived coal products that come from the transformation of primary and secondary coal products, as we explained just before. Looking at now the trades, they can increase or decrease the supply depending if it's imports or exports of coal products. And same for the stocks changes that can increase or decrease the supply depending if it's a stock drawing or a stock building. On the demand side, there are 4 main sections. The first section is transformation that we already mentioned. It can be into another coal product or into another type of energy. For instance, the transformation of other bituminous coal into electricity in power plants. The second section refers to the coal consumed in the energy sector, for instance, the coal mines, or to support the transformation plants that we mentioned before in the first section. The third section is the final consumption, in which we have 3 types of energy uses, namely industry, transport, and another category that includes commercial, residential, or agriculture, for instance. And the final consumption also includes the non-energy use of coal that refers to coal used mainly as a feedstock. We can, for instance, mention the use of coke oven coke, which is one of the solid forms of carbon in the manufacture of components such as soda ash or silicon carbide. Finally, the last section refers to losses, which are those that may happen due to transport and distribution, as well as venting of gases. When it comes to production, most of the coal production occurs in mines, as we said, that can be underground or surface mines, and of which surface mines are more diffuse today because the process is less costly. And the quantities reported are those accounted after the removal of inert matter, which is called the cleaning, and which we call the saleable coal production. So this production also includes the quantities that are consumed by the producer during the production process, for instance, for heating or for operation or of equipment and for auxiliaries equipment. When it comes to trades, coal is easily transported over long distances, either by boat or by train. We can consider imports are the quantities of coal entering a country for domestic supply and demand, whereas exports are the quantities that have been domestically produced and then later leave the country. This means that the transit trades are excluded, meaning that if a country imports a quantity just to export it right after without doing any process on that coal, this should not be considered as a trade. We have prepared 3 examples to illustrate what I've just said. So let's look at country A, for instance. We see that the production is positive. There are no imports and there are some exports. In that case, we are sure that there are no transit trades because the exports are coming directly from the production. For country B, it is a bit trickier as there are both production and imports, which make us unsure where the exports exactly originate. One way to assess if there are transit trades is to look at the quantities reported, because if the exports exceed the production, it means that part of it comes from the import and is actually transit trade. Or we can also look at the calorific values reported, as calorific values of exports should match the calorific values of production. And finally, for country C, we are sure that there are transit trade as there is no production. We see that both imports and exports are positive. One, to be fully comprehensive, it could be that there are some stock changes and some of the coal, part of the coal exported is coming from the stock changes, but this seems simply to illustrate that we should be careful not to account for transit trade if there is no production. Moving on now to the transformation side, we see that a wide variety of transformation plants and processes can occur. The most common is the use of coal in electricity and heat plants, but coal can also be transformed in coke ovens, where coking coal is transformed into coke oven coke and other byproducts such as coke oven gas and coal tar. Coal can also be transformed in blast furnaces, where coke oven coke is used to produce pig iron and some gases. And coal and coal products can also be used in gas works that are utilities whose main purpose is manufacture, transport, and distribution of gas, and where gas work gas is produced. Finally, coal can also be transformed in liquefaction plants, where coal is converted into liquid hydrocarbons. Let's look at a typical transformation of coal, where coking coal is subject to a process of carbonization in a coke oven, which means that coking coal is heated at high temperature in an oxygen-free atmosphere. The coking coal is here transformed into coke oven coke, and the byproducts of this process, as we said before, are coke oven gas and coal tar. If we want to calculate the efficiency of this process, we first of all know that it usually ranges from 70% to 90%. And to calculate this efficiency, we have to make sure we convert all of the flows in energy terms, and that we account, of course, for all of the energy flows. And so it would be dividing the output by the inputs. So the sum of coke oven coke, coke oven gas, and coal tar divided by coking coal and other energy inputs if there are some. If we take a step back and we move to a simplified flowchart of the iron and steel industry as a whole, which is a very important sector in the coal balance, we can see that several processes are involved and imply different flows in the coal balance, and it's important to differentiate and classify all of the flows correctly. First of all, we have transformation flows, which are in blue on the chart. So the blue arrows indicate that an energy product is inputted to be transformed into another energy product. And the transformation of the other energy product or the transformed energy product are displayed in black arrows. There can also be energy industry unused flows that are displayed in light blue. For instance, here we can see that part of the released gas are burnt to heat either the coke oven or the blast furnace. And we can also have final consumption flows that are reported in green. And same, we can see that part of the released gas from the operations can be inputted to the steel processes. So in this chart, the basic oxygen furnace, for instance, or the subsequent processes. Finally, it's important to note that we only account in our balances. We only account for energy products, and we do not include in our balances the non-energy products. For instance, what we see on the chart here are the iron ore here, or the pig iron that is produced, and is displayed here through these gray arrows. Because they are not non-energy products and they cannot be used for energy use, then we do not account for them in our balances. Also, it's important to keep in mind that we have for each of these steps a range of efficiency that can make you ensure that each of the flows that you have reported as an input or as an output are consistent with each other and doesn't give an efficiency that is unlikely. Finally, a few words on data reporting now. So the data that we use can come from many different sources, can come from surveys to companies or to households, can also come from administrative data, which is the data that should be submitted to ministries, energy regulators, or administrative offices, such as the customs offices. It can also come from their direct measurement, for instance, for calorific values, from other sources, such as coal associations, or at least, unless, estimation and modeling for cases where data is not available. At the IEA, we use a questionnaire to collect data from countries. This questionnaire contains 4 tables. The table 1 that gives for each flow and coal product the data. So this is our coal balance. Then we have 2 tables for the trades, one for the imports and one for the exports. And then 1 table for the calorific values. In addition to that, we have 70 tables, one for each coal product, with the time series of each flow that is displayed. If we focus on table 1, we see that each column represents a commodity balance for a specific product. From top to bottom, there are the supply, the transformation, the energy on use, and the final consumption. When looking at the trades tables, it is important to note that there is a dedicated line at the end labeled not elsewhere specified that we can see here. And it can be useful in case you don't have the information from the customs office with regards to all of the partner countries for imports or for exports. Moving on to the calorific values table, here it is important to ensure that the calorific value is reported for each of the physical flow that you have for each of the products in table 1, and also to ensure that calorific value are consistent among flows for a given product. For instance, here for coking coal, we can see that the only source of supply is the imports, and that the only demand is the use in coke ovens. And so therefore, the calorific value must be equal from the supply and demand side. Moving on to the product tabs, here are displayed the time series of each supply and demand flows, as it was in table 1, but for the whole time series. And we also have in these product tabs, if you scroll down a bit, the calorific values that are displayed. And in other dedicated tabs to each product, we can have the trades, so the imports and the exports by partner countries. Please also note that the questionnaire contains a remarks sheet where you can provide additional information about complicated processes, specific situations, unusual trends, or any specification you would like to make with regards to the country for the submission that you are providing. One thing that is important to check is the consistency internal to the questionnaire, but also with other questionnaires. So when it comes to the internal consistency, we can, for instance, mention the fact that the sum of all the imports by origin in table 2 should be equal to the same as the total imports reported in the supply side of the table 1. Or also, we need to make sure that the input and output of transformation processes, such as coke ovens or blast furnaces, should lead to an efficiency that is below 100% and that is in the ranges that we mentioned before. And when it comes to consistency with other questionnaires, for instance, we can mention the fact that if we report a quantity of coal used for power generation, this must be consistent with the quantity reported in the electricity and heat questionnaire. Finally, if you want to learn more about the IEA energy statistics, we have a lot of different resources that can be helpful. We'll find here the link to our IEA energy statistics manual that is available in 10 different languages. Also, you can visit our website if you want to have additional content with regard to the questionnaire, the glossary, or some documentation. And you can rely on the United Nations International Recommendation for Energy Statistics, the IRS, which is also available in several languages. Thank you very much for your attention, and I remain available for any question you could have.